Top 10 dying acting careers saved by one amazing movie. Movies are a precarious business. The hottest trend one moment can become yesterday's news to the next. And no one in business knows the fickle, ever-changing taste of Hollywood more than actors. We set out to find the top 10 dying acting careers saved by one of the greatest films of all time. But please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel before starting. Number 10. Paddington 2. Of course, viewers grew tired of seeing Grant in similar parts, and having Grant himself grew tired of films he was doing, admitting to having a poor attitude following the release of Music and Lyrics, his final rom-com. Following this, Grant effectively vanished off the face of the earth, and his demise was certified in 2009 by a box office bomb. The days of being a very well-paid leading man were suddenly gone overnight, the actor revealed. Grant's career didn't take off until the release of Paddington 2 in 2017. He relished the opportunity to play a villain, a true dramatic pantomime evil, who stole the show and reminded spectators why they had been so enamored with his talent decades before. Number 9. The Town. It's impossible to emphasize how despised Ben Affleck was in the mid-2000s. Despite a promising start with co-writing and performing in Good Will Hunting, a string of bombs, including Pearl Harbor, Daredevil, and Geely, turned him into a laughingstock. Audiences were rated that he was being pushed so hard despite never providing very excellent performances, and frequent press hounding compounded his status as a Hollywood punching bag. For a while, it appeared like his time as a movie star was coming to an end. Nobody expected Affleck to return and legitimize himself by taking a job in front of the camera. His directorial debut, Gone Baby Gone, drew critical acclaim, but it was his second film, The Town, that paved the way for the next stage of his career. Follow-up, Argo, may have been the film that truly took off, with its Oscar win confirming that Affleck's reputation had been restored, but it wouldn't have been made without The Town's economic and critical success. Number 8. Hustlers. J-Lo was a phenomenally successful recording artist and movie star who, at her peak, was a pop culture juggernaut, starring in films and smashing record sale records all over the world. However, her relationship with Affleck, as well as the critical and economic failure of their collaborative film Geely, threw everything into upheaval. After a run of disappointments in the movie industry, J-Lo shifted her concentration to music and made her career pivot to television, where she admittedly didn't suffer for employment. That was until Hustlers, a film starring and produced by J-Lo, appeared out of nowhere in 2019. The scathing comedy about a gang of strippers who band together to rip off their sleazy male clients proved to be a blockbuster, with Lopez's performance in particular being hailed as not only a return to form, but also her best work to date. Number 7. Pulp Fiction. Travolta shot to fame in the late 1970s with the double whammy of Saturday Night Fever and Grease, and he quickly became a household figure. He was the all-singing, all-dancing movie star, but he was also not hesitant to take on difficult roles, such as in Brian De Palma's Blowout. His ascension to the top of Hollywood, however, was shockingly brief. Travolta spent most of the 1980s on a downward spiral, starring in films that no one remembers now, such as the comedy The Experts and the romantic flick Perfect. By the time the 1990s arrived, family-friendly films like Look Who's Talking had effectively signaled Travolta's demise. Number 6. Rocky Balboa. You don't need to tell me how important Sylvester Stallone was. The action movie king ruled Hollywood in the 1980s with 3 enormous franchises and a slew of blockbuster one-offs to his credit. As a result, Stallone reverted to his older franchises in search of a much-needed hit. Rather than repeating his previous blunders and changing forth as if it were still his prime, he approached them with a new sense of world wariness. Accepting his age and the fact that his popularity had waned allowed him to pinch himself as the underdog once more. Stallone's career was revitalized by a flood of new projects that haven't stopped since. Number 5. Dolemite Is My Name. Dolemite Is My Name is the most current biopic in this series. The film is set in the 1970s. Moore began his career as a vocalist before finding some success as a comedian. Despite the fact that his early jokes are primarily hack observations, he changes up his approach after hearing homeless persons relate stories and creating a character based on them. Dolemite is a foul-mouthed pimp on stage who rhymes in a poetic, rap-like cadence with vulgar or profane punchlines in the best way possible. Moore becomes a cult star in black neighborhoods after recording his first album, and he intends to expand his brand into film. The project is low budget to say the least, but Moore and his crew, including the unenthusiastic director and co-star Reverend Martin, played by Wesley Snipes, eventually developed the cult classic blaxploitation comedy Dolemite thanks to Moore's drive, hope, and wit. Number 4. Killer Joe. Despite his success in indie films like Dazed and Confused, Matthew McConaughey became a generic, bankable rom-com star in the 2000s. and his chiseled abs made a lot of money starring in romantic comedies like Ghosts of Girlfriends Past and Failure to Launch. But his time as a serious actor was finished. Unlike many other celebrities, McConaughey saw the rom-com bubble coming to an end and made a concerted effort to alter his career and take to new, more prestigious heights. Like Affleck's The Town and Argo, Dallas Buyers Club would go on to be a more critically and economically successful film, but it wouldn't have been possible without Killer Joe. Number 3. The Godfather. Marlon Brando's career was in shambles before The Godfather came around, which is perhaps the most shocking entry on our list. He fell out of favor with the major studios, who all recognized his brilliance but saw him as a movie-making poison. Due to box office flops, favoring high paydays over great scripts and continual stories on onset difficulties. As a result, when Francis Ford Coppola decided he wanted Brando to play Don Corleone in The Godfather, a gangster epic about which Paramount Pictures was already concerned, the studio most likely thought he was joking. The rest, as they say, is history, and while Brando's career would eventually die out, this propelled it forward for another decade. Number 2. Deadpool. The only problem was that every film in which he appeared was a flop. Every film, for example. This isn't the only one. They're all there. It didn't matter what genre he tried, the end result was always a flop. Horror? The remake of the indie horror film failed miserably. Is it romantic comedy? Just Friends was a colossal flop. Movies about superheroes, Blade Trinity, Green Lantern, X-Men Origins, Wolverine need to be mentioned as little as possible. Of course, Ryan Reynolds understood he simply needed the right role, and he knew Deadpool, the actual one, not the Origins Wolverine blunder, would be the ideal vehicle for his talents. The problem was that the owner of the rights, Fox, didn't agree. An R-rated superhero film that defies the fourth wall and stars a character that only comic book fans are familiar with? They were adamant about not biting. Reynolds finally got his desire after years of wearing him down, and he was proven correct when Deadpool became one of the year's most profitable pictures. Overnight, Reynolds became a legitimate sensation. Number 1. Blockers. But it wasn't through a lack of effort. He attempted to emulate the same action movie trajectory with little success in WWE-backed films like The Marine, and spent the following few years in boring minor parts and spells in embarrassing films like Fred the Movie. With appearances in comedies like Sisters and Trainwreck, things started to pick up momentum, but even these were terrific pictures, and the joke was more about watching John Cena in a movie than anything he was actually doing. It was a huge hit, and Cena held his own against the more established supporting cast members. It marked a turning point in his career and in some ways established him as a legitimate Hollywood name. After a few years, he landed his own TV show as well as roles in major motion pictures. Thank you so much for watching Top 10 Dying Acting Career Saved by One Amazing Movies list. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel to receive notifications of new and interesting videos.